Welcome to another Todd's
2-Minute Tech Tip Tuesday.
Brought to you by the National RV Training Academy, the largest hands-on RV training academy in America. Hey, before we get to the video, which I know this is the reason why you're here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you don't miss anything. Hit the subscribe button now. Thank you. Now, back to our Tech Tip Tuesday. All right, this week I've got a couple more questions, and these are going to be propane related. Okay, so propane related questions. I got two of those. Now this one is from user PN2 E6. There's a 6 in there, and an MV3. That sounds like your password, people. When you use a username, it should be something that we can all pronounce. And then when you're using a mixture of letters and alphabets and all that stuff, that's your password. I guess you just gave us all your password. So thank you for that. All right. Is it safe to transport an empty 100-pound tank, I'm assuming propane, horizontally? Yes. Okay. Now, if you watched my videos before, tanks should be transported in the upright position, especially DOT tanks. Okay. The question is, does that 100-pound tank kind of fit in that DOT? The DOT doesn't regulate those 100-pound tanks, but the application is the same. Now here's the problem. Up top, there's a service valve on those tanks, and actually they're cylinders, but we'll just call it a tank. If there's too much pressure built up on the inside, in other words, too much heat, and I've got my propane tank or cylinder full of propane, the hotter it gets, the more volume that propane wants to take up. That's just complete gas law theory. Well, it's got no place to expand, so it increases pressure, right? There is a pressure relief valve on top of that service valve, and what it does is it helps maintain the pressure by releasing some of that pressure, right? It gets too hot, let's say around 300 psi, it's going to let a little bit of that propane out, right? Lowers the volume being taken up by the gas until it gets hot again. Now, here's the thing. If I lay that on its side and I'm full of propane, again, if it gets too much pressure, too much heat hitting that propane cylinder, what's going to come out is not air, or what I should say, vapor, but what's going to come out is liquid. Now, here's the thing. The reason why you don't take a propane cylinder and lay it on its side is because propane will expand 270 times from its liquefied state. In other words, whenever it turns from a liquid to a vapor, it expands 270 times. Now, picture this. If I lay it on its side and the liquid level is up here, and if there's too much heat, I'm going to vacate now liquid. What am I doing? I'm releasing 270 times more propane than if it was horizontal. Vertical. Whatever this is. This is horizontal, this is vertical. All right. So the question is, if it's empty, in other words, there's no liquid, then it doesn't matter, right? Because the liquid level, the liquid level would not be above my release point. So perfectly can do that, because how else, would you get that transported? The question is, when you're coming back after it's full, right? You're going to transport it this way because it seems to be just a lot easier to transport. But when you bring it back, guess what? You better tie strap that thing down, and no, bungee cords do not suffice. DOT regulations. 8 times the total weight, so you need to strap that down in some way. Put it in the vertical position when it's full. It's a great question, though. The next question, on this is, what would cause the Atwood Dometic water heater? Now, this is from Don Watterson, 8343. What I don't know, was he born in 83 or was he born in 43? But we always know when people put numbers at the end, that's pretty much when they're born. Right? I'm giving away other tips here. All right. So, Don, either you're younger or you're older. One of those two. All right. What would cause the Atwood/Dometic water heater to stop working on propane when you close the access panel? You close the access panel. It runs fine with the access panel open, but as soon as you close it, it stops working. That's another propane-related question. Okay? Now, we're using propane as the fuel source for that flame. We use the flame to heat up the water, okay? In order for there to be a flame, there has to be air. Propane does not ignite by itself. As a matter of fact, we use very little propane to create a fire. about 2.15% to 9.6% propane. The rest of that is air. Okay? Now, at first glance, just reading this without looking at anything, well, when you close the door, you just limited the airflow coming in. So therefore, you're not going to get a pretty blue flame down there. Okay? Anytime it works fine when there's an access panel open but closed, that means there's a restriction of air. Or somehow we're creating a short cycle situation of too much airflow, and it's blowing out, of course, our flame. Now, because your water heater uses between 7,000 BTUs and 10,000 BTUs, it's a pretty decent sized flame. And I doubt air, just by simply closing the door, would create a short cycle situation. So my first thought is, that there's air restrictions going on. The next thing you want to look at, because down here by your burner assembly, right, there's going to be some wires hanging there. Okay, and one of these wires on there there's a fusible link. It's just a fuse. When it gets too hot, it opens. The problem is you're saying it works fine whenever you open it, but whenever you close it, it doesn't work. So you open it again and it works again. Well, it wouldn't be that fusible link. But what I want you to do is look at, when you close that access panel, are you pushing in wires somewhere? Okay, because it could be that you have a loose connection, and whenever you close that lid, you're pushing on these wires just a bit, because it's a rat's nest a lot of times. They don't police the wires very well. Well, it could create, one of these little connections that may be loose. It just could cause it. Says, nope, nothing's going to work because it doesn't make good connection. You open it back up and the wires release, okay? And it may do that. So here's the thing. As technicians, and if you're going to do your own stuff, right? When you open the door, you have that, close it. Immediately, I'm going to think airflow. But while you're there looking, make sure all your contacts are good and tight. Also take those off if you can. Just pull off the contact and look to see if there's corrosion. You could also have corrosion in there. And so it looks like there's a good tight connection, but it could be corroded. So visually take off the connections, look from the spade connectors, and put it back in. All right? But I bet you it's airflow. Got an airflow problem. You want to look up top. Is that wall panel or that access panel? Has it been caved in a little bit or something like that? Maybe going in too far. But that's an airflow problem, which can be fixed. All right. So another thing you want to look around. Make sure the thing is completely sealed. If down there where one of the holes where your let's see here. What is this? This is your copper line coming in. If that thing is open, yeah, you could be pulling in air that needs to be completely sealed. The only air that should actually get on the outside of that panel, outside and inside, should be outside air. There should not be any air coming in from the cabin. Should not suck out any air. Okay? So make sure that is completely sealed. And if you don't know, this is where you actually come over to the National RV Training Academy and get signed up for one of the classes. We'll go over that for you. All right. So there's your tech tip. All right, before you get to the bloopers, which is why you're here in the first place, the RV industry needs thousands of RV technicians and inspectors, and now is the perfect time to do that. If you want to make more money or have more control over your time, go ahead and click the link below. Or if you just want to learn how to fix your own RV, got something for you there. Head over to rvtechcourse.com and get started today.
Now for the reason that you're at the end of the video, roll the bloopers.
Than if it was horizontal. Vertical. Whatever this is. This is horizontal, this is vertical. The holes where your, let's see here, what is this?